I will be moderating the next panel on integrative medicine. There's some really exciting things going on in this field. And today we have a very august panel. First of all, Oana Marcu, who is a PhD scientist and has worked on NASA and SETI and the International Space Station. David Cao, who is the CEO of F50, who has also been running a study group on traditional or Chinese medicine for the past 2.5 years in Silicon Valley. Dr. Hao Liu, who is a Chinese medicine physician. And the most interesting thing I learned on our prep call is that he comes from 8 generations of Chinese medicine doctors. And his great, I think it was great-grandfather was the doctor to the royal family under the Qing dynasty. I have Karen Charman, who is an energy healer who practices BioSET amongst other things and has had a fascinating journey. And of course, I'm Anna Shen, and I'm a journalist and also have a UN background in World Bank. So I'd like to kick it off first, and maybe perhaps each of you can give a little bit about your journey and how you came to this this profession of healing people using, integrative medicine. Why don't I start out with Oana?
Yeah, hi Anna. Thank you, everybody. So my journey, I am a scientist, and I used to actually teach developmental biology and how bodies pattern from one cell. And so all these molecular networks that make you have a left and a right, 5 digits and all that kind of thing. And then I ended up working at SETI and NASA on projects for astrobiology and the International Space Station, but the core denominator for all that was how life responds to environmental stress, whether it was environmental stress in extreme environments for astrobiology, or the stress of radiation and microgravity, or lack of lower gravity in low Earth orbit and deep space. So I had this science background, and then so that's the science. The second part was watching in organizations how we make decisions. So I worked on projects that had a very high risk, the need for safety. And I kept looking at ourselves, how we're making decisions, and some of them were made out of fear or out of uber concern. So there was this balance between risk-taking and moving forward that was really oftentimes very, very personal. In 2014, in the midst of my flourishing career, and I was super happy and had friends all over the world, I got diagnosed with an ovarian mass. It's like, damn, all of a sudden. So life shows you what you need to learn. And I still remember I was in the doctor's office, and I asked him, wait a minute, how come a body of a young woman who never drank, never did any kind of addiction, I always ate very healthy, I had a lot of friends, I was super happy, and I did a lot of sports. So everything that's in the book about a healthy life, how come my body makes something like that? And he goes, well, that's the $1 million question. And my brain immediately said, well, what's the $1 million answer? So while I was going through this and solving this math, and actually ended up having surgery in Norway or places, my science brain and curiosity really kicked in, because as I said, I was teaching developmental biology, and this thing is not part of the pattern that a normal body or healthy body should develop. So I ended up learning a lot about the emotional background that we hold from parents, and in utero trauma and childhood trauma, and how everything contributes to our well-being. So that's my background, but I am not a medical doctor. I'm a scientist, and I'm curious, and I've done a lot of my own personal introspection to basically empower myself and be the kind of patient that is not overburdening a medical system with things that don't belong in the medical system. They belong to me.
That's fascinating. David, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into this topic?
The secret is that I have been practicing standing meditation for the last few years. I'm a big fan of Oriental medicine. So I grew up in a small factory house in a hospital in China. So my parents both work in the health tech industry. But unfortunately, first many years I was engineer doing development. I didn't spend much time on this topic. So when my mom was diagnosed as diabetics, I didn't spend too much. At that time, I didn't understand. Until I grew older, all the older problems like cholesterol, many other things. I don't need to go into details. But then you realize, oh well, health is very important. So I organized a group called Oriental Medicine Study Group. We have a few hundred people. We actually organize meditation and group practice every week until the pandemic. Okay, so Dr. Liu actually is our standing meditation instructor as well. So what we found out that is very helpful. It gave me a different understanding of health, your body, and the life. So I believe that other than the investment on the medicines, pharmas, which cure the disease and prevent and save lives. In addition, this society needs more effort to help people, the individuals, to practice life on their own, so people can be healthier. Of course, on the other hand, the insurance costs can be significantly lower.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's why you look so young, baby face. Dr. Liu?
Hello. Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. I did I did tell everybody the great secret of your family.
Okay.
But anything else you'd like to add to that?
Oh yeah. I think this really just come from the family history. I think I started to learn the Chinese medicine since I was 5. This is like the Chinese tradition. When you were young, they teach you a lot of things. They don't tell you what it mean to you, but they just let you memorize a lot of things. Okay, but after you're getting older, then you naturally understand what it's talking about. So that's why in my generation, we have 7 kids, so we all started to learn when since we were really young. But the most interesting is I'm the only one left still going on. Okay, everybody else went another way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I started so basically till right now I've been learning for 30 some years. I'm still learning because the Chinese medicine is it's really just like the ocean. It's no end. The learning is no ending. But what I really want to see is the Chinese medicine really give me the respect. Besides what we learned in school about how to think, how to logically look at the world, it actually taught me how to feel. Okay, how to feel myself, how to feel my people around me, and how to feel the environment. Okay, so this actually I think is the most people has not been developed for in their life. So this is the part most people are lacking with. And I also want to one thing I want to say is I really thanks all my patients. First of all, I think their trust, but the thing is like they really help me to improve myself. So that's why I think the best benefit to be the Chinese medicine doctor is not about how many patients you helped. Actually, it's how many patients came to help you. So they actually really just use their own body and they use their, even with their wealthy, they come to you to teach you a lot of things. So I learned a lot just through the patients, through the practice with them, So I think that's the best part to be a Chinese medicine doctor is this part.
Oh, interesting. They're a great contribution. Karen, you also have a really interesting story I'd love to hear and have you share with the audience. Can you hear? Can you
hear me? Okay, good. I was getting these messages that said I had to unmute. So for most of my working life, I was an investigative environmental journalist, but 24 years ago, my whole immune system started completely flipping out. And I did have a history of allergies prior to that, but they were mild, sort of. I was allergic to gluten and dairy. And if I avoided gluten and dairy, I could keep the eczema that would be the instant reaction that I would get at bay. But about 24 years ago, my now husband and I moved into an apartment in New York City that had been completely renovated. And all of the wood floors were freshly varnished with oil-based varnish. The walls were painted, the kitchen cabinets were varnished. I was working as a freelance journalist, so I was working at home. And over the course of about, I don't know, a month or so, all of a sudden, I started reacting to everything and I became chemically sensitive. And a few years before that, I had run into some people who were chemically sensitive at a pesticides conference in Washington, DC. And that was my first exposure to that concept. So when it started happening to me, I had a little bit of an idea of what was going on. And I certainly knew enough to be really scared, because as I was reading up on people who were suffering from that condition, they would get so sensitive that they would basically have to retreat to a bubble. And I kept saying, I'm not going to that bubble. You know, I will do anything that I can to figure this out. And so initially I started with environmental medicine doctors, and it was sort of helpful, but their paradigm is avoid exposures as much as you can. I was put on a very strict food rotation diet because I also, in addition to being chemically sensitive and reacting to all kinds of environmental toxins, I also became allergic to pretty much all foods. And later I was diagnosed with leaky gut syndrome, which is when your intestinal tract becomes so inflamed that it becomes permeable. So of course, everything that I was eating, microscopic amounts of it were leaching out into my bloodstream and my immune system was attacking it. It was pretty much a nightmare, and it went on for a long time. I was very, very aggressive about searching for different kinds of help. And for me, like I actually left Manhattan for a while. I moved to Vermont just to stop the exposures so that things could calm down a little bit. Came back to Manhattan, learned that they were going to be painting the inside of our apartment building in the summertime. And I thought there's no way I can stay for that. And in the meantime, I had met a young woman at a environmental medicine doctor's office who was sicker than I was, but she was telling me that she had started this new treatment and it was really, really helping her. And that treatment was NAET. And so I decided that I would go where she was, which was Ithaca, and you know, start treating with the person who was treating her. And one of the things that would happen to me, because gluten and dairy had been allergies for such a long time, soy had become a huge part of my diet. And when I would eat soy, my stomach would blow out within minutes and I would have these terrible cramps and pain and all that. And I had
so how do you cure, what type of solution you are doing to cure your disease right now?
Okay, so
summarize maybe a few things you are doing right now.
Okay, so basically the NAET treatment, the idea is that when there's something within your energy field that you're reacting to, it sets up blockages somewhere in your meridian system. And those blockages can be detected with muscle testing. So this is what we use to figure out what people are reacting to. And then while the thing is in your energy field, which for our purposes means you're holding a vial, a glass vial of it in your hand, you clear the meridians by tapping up and down the spine while that thing is in your field. And what happens is it resets your immune system and your nervous system and you lose the reaction. So I had one treatment for soy and that horrible stomach reaction never happened again. So at that point, I knew that that would be my healing path. And I came back to New York. We moved upstate, which is where we are now. I found another practitioner, and over the few years, all of my symptoms went away.
That's great to hear.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty amazing.
ask every panelist the question so because this panel is about integrative medicine. One of the biggest questions I want to ask everybody is that the relationship between our traditional, we call the MDs, medical doctors, treat all the different diseases versus other people like people in the meditations, people in the alternative medicine field to look at the disease. I know there's in many parts of the world, it looks like a different different separate worlds. How do we connect them? Because in this particular conference, we invited many world-class doctors joined our event speaker. Actually, I asked a few people their opinion about meditation, or those things are important, but they cannot really fix the problem. That's a common feedback received from many doctors. I actually think the MDs, the medicines, technology is very important, crucial. At the same time, we need to increase the importance of the integrated medicines, and particularly how people can do many things on their own. I'd like to start maybe ask Dr. Liu to share your thoughts about what you see the relationship between the standard Western medicine versus the alternative medicine.
I think this will start. I will talk back a little bit because I want to introduce a little bit more about the Chinese medicine, so people have a much better idea about what's really going on. So first of all, traditional Chinese medicine has been used more than 5,000 years. So if we think back, okay, if you imagine this, now you're a doctor living 200 years ago, and there's no any advanced technology. No X-ray, no CT, no MRI, no nothing, okay? But you have to face all the patients you're facing right now. Okay, how do you help them? And now, imagine one more time with me. And then now you are the doctor who work for the royal family, okay? And if you make any mistake, and the death will be your punishment. So how do you ensure that the royal family can live a healthy and happy life? And also ensure you can keep your head to have a healthy and happy life. So in this way of thinking, okay. So imagine this: the disease. Think about this: if it's a mild illness, it's easy to treat, or the serious one is easy to treat. So of course, the choice with the mild illness would be much easier to treat, right? So that's why from the very beginning, Chinese medicine was focused on prevention. Okay, will keep you healthy in the first place. So therefore, when we detect the energy imbalance in the human body, we treat it. Okay, so because we all know right now, if we wait until the problem shows on your blood tests or CT scan or whatever, so it becomes much harder to treat, or sometimes it is even too late. That's why in Chinese, we believe the best doctor cure you before you get sick. Okay, so we don't want to wait. And also, since we realize the earliest change happening in the human bodies happens on the energy level, and we also realized a long time ago that all matter in the world actually is only just a different form of energy. So that's why we know the human and the nature were one, or like one piece. Okay, so we affect each other in all ways. So this is why Chinese medicine will actually put the human into the nature to study them together. Instead, only study human or separate them. Okay, with this respect, so right now I think this Chinese medicine actually has really good combination to work with the Western medicine right now, because with we can see with the technology that keep developing, the inspection ability of Western medicine is getting stronger and stronger. Okay, and they more understand about the many pathologic facts of the illness. So actually, we have to admit they really made a huge contribution to human health, and especially when we heard the successful successfully doing the heart transplant, liver transplant, we have to say, come on, this is a milestone in medical history. But on the other hand, a lot of patients also came in with a lot of symptoms, with no diagnosis from the blood test or whatever scan. Okay, it's only just because their problems still in a lighter level, early stage, and which that is the Chinese medicine special field. Okay, so that's why I personally would think the best health system to helping human being actually is when you're in the early stage. Chinese medicine, or what we call the energy work, will deal with that. Okay, but we can really just postpone the problem getting worse, or we can just even just fix the patients in really early stage. The life quality getting a lot better and a lot sooner. And then at the later stage, yes, then we need the Western medicine's help with their diagnosis, even without pushing everything to kick in, so to save the life, right? So I think this is really good, the best combination of the Chinese medicine, or we can say the energy work, with the Western medicine together. So that's my this is just my immature idea for my own, but I think I personally will feel this actually it should be the best way if it could happen.
Dr. Liu, I just have a quick question. What do you think the timeline is for this merging of Western and Eastern medicine?
I don't know, because in China, since 1960, and there's already because a lot of history issues. Okay, in Chinese medicine actually got forbidden by the government for a period of time, actually quite a few times in the history. So now since 1960, they rebuilt all the university hospital, and they put Chinese medicine department into the Western hospital, and they also have the Chinese medicine hospital in China, and with the Western equipment together. Basically, I think this is a really good way to try. Yeah, but depends on how far I can go. I mean, of course, when it's going on, still a lot of trouble, a lot of problems goes on. But I think this is a really good way to see. And also, right now, you can see the Kaiser already have their acupuncture department. Stanford has their acupuncture department. You know, I think things are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Oana, I'd like to ask you, you really are interested in bringing brain science and more science into the field of integrative medicine. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I come from this perspective that our brain has enormous plasticity. And many people on the planet, many of us are constantly in this survival mode, right? Stress responses and survival mode and rushing. How I do this, how I do this? Well, that's when your body goes into survival mode as well, right? So there's this huge link with a brain that's in survival mode and the body that's in survival mode, and a brain that has a lot of plasticity, and a gut with a microbiome that has a lot of plasticity. So I completely agree with Dr. Liu. Ideally, we would prevent all these things, but we have a lot of disease, so that's a place for the medical system. I think the place we are not looking is the enormous biological capacity of our bodies and brains to regenerate. And that is the process that science doesn't understand really fully. No place in medicine that I know of really understands really fully. But every patient who has gone through anything knows that the recovery process is actually really important. In the previous panel, it was brought up, we never measured the recovery process, right? But that is your innate capacity of the immune system and everything else, all the meridians, all the other organs to kick in and help you recover. And so this is also using about all our senses, right? As a biologist, I'm interested in all these senses, and Dr. Liu spoke about feeling, right? But feeling, it has become such a taboo world in the Western world, but it's not about feeling in over drama emotional. This is a natural sense that we have. It's a natural sense of empathy with other people, the sensations in your body, right? And they can be actually very healthy. So you will see that there's so many papers, even from medical doctors, that they use, for example, music therapy, pre-breast cancer surgery, to not give pain medication anymore. And the patients act better under surgery, recover quicker from anesthesia, and the recovery time from the surgery is much faster. So there's so many things that we can use. Music, sound therapy. Today I just read a paper at 7:30 in the morning. There was a science paper from USDA Department of Agriculture out of Philadelphia. They did this study, just increasing the tree canopy decreased the mortality in the city. So it's in many ways, wow, that's interesting, right? But isn't it sad that we have to think that we are stuck in buildings and in artificial lights and everything? And it's exactly like Dr. Liu said, and like Karen mentioned, we need our natural environment. So we've gotten to a point to have to make a study to realize that we need to reconnect to nature. So to me, as a biologist, of course, I always go to nature, right? So I will be a big advocate for anything that has to do with nature outside. But unfortunately, we've developed this social system in which we have this working environment 8 to 5 or 8 to midnight. And if you look at addictions, in fact, what we're doing, we're addicted to work, we're addicted to our computers, we're addicted to our cell phones. It's actually an addiction, right? But we don't recognize it as such. And so my viewpoint is, let's slow down, because we have innate capacity for our bodies to regenerate that we are totally not tapping in. So we can save a lot for the medical system, for the prevention and for the recovery of the human body after disease.
Okay, interesting. Just one really quick question for Karen, because we're running out of time. Can you just say a little bit about your website is Your Body Knows. Can you say a little bit, just quick 2 seconds on that?
I decided to call my practice Your Body Knows because what I've discovered in my journey, not only myself, but also working with clients, is that our subconscious contains every single experience we've ever had, all the knowledge about what's going on in our bodies. So when we can tap into that, we can actually discover what is leading to the various symptoms and clear that. That's as concise as I can make that.
To add to that, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of questions yesterday as well about these data and how we're actually missing the phenotype, right? What's happening really in the body, and that in fact, no person on this planet is a statistics. We are all off the curve because every person has their family history, their childhood history, their work history, whatever it is that we come with. And of course, we can't overburden the medical system with all that, right? So that's what's missing, this correlation between a person who's absolutely unique. Nobody else on this planet had any, you can say that 2 people on this planet had the same experience. Yet we treat disease as the same. So what's missing is really the human factor when we're treating or looking at disease.
Interesting.
So I'm sorry. So that's why in Chinese medicine, actually, we have a really completed system to measure things, measure every individual person. So that's why Chinese medicine, we have to treat patient one by one. We cannot just treat them like factory. It's because we respect every person is special, and we do have the whole completed system to measure everyone's situation. So that's why I think if people know a bit more about this, a lot of things will become easier.
Interesting. Okay, and then just one more for Karen. We were talking about all the sort of, this is obviously a health tech innovation conference. So what are you observing sort of in this landscape? Because I know you're exploring some of that right now.
Yeah, well, I think that technologies that actually take into account our energy fields, which is what we can tap into with, muscle testing is a way to do it manually, but there are also various kinds of devices that are on the market. Some that have been around for quite a long time that can measure I guess, I don't know. I mean, I haven't personally used them. I tend to be a low-tech person myself. but I know they can read fields and they can read different patterns in people's bodies and actually identify blockages in various places. There's another device that's just recently become available in the United States. It's been in Europe for a long time. It's called the Healy. And it does scans on each individual person, but then also has access to a medical cloud with 144,000 different frequencies that they then download into each person, you know, depending upon what the scan shows. And because we're all unique, these things are responding to our unique needs. So that's exciting.
And what about Oana or Dr. Liu? Do you have any experience with that or observation?
Actually, right now we there's a lot of new product come out, and people are trying to check testing for the energy level field, but so far I don't see any. One of them is reach what I want to have. Okay, because for example, if I see a patient, when I'm reading her pulse or reading his or her pulse, basically I can tell all her organ situation, all her meridian situation, even all her body bone situation. Okay, so right now I don't see any machine can be this good yet, but I do hope in the future it should keep getting better and better.
Man is the ultimate machine. Oana?
Yeah, it makes me think of Star Trek and the tricorder, you know, is there life there? So I am a big proponent of artificial intelligence, where the artificial intelligence has its place. There's tremendous knowledge that can be gained from all that. But I'm also a huge proponent of personal interaction. The reason we become sick is that we don't have the kind of attention that a healthy child needs to get, right? We need eye contact. We have mirror neurons in our brains and everywhere that actually pattern from interactions that we see. There's something called a condition that's called mirror touch synesthesia. Somebody sees somebody else in pain and they feel pain themselves, right? So we call that a condition, but we we underestimate the power of that basically skill. So how do we turn that around, right? So there is nothing that replaces a personal connection as far as I'm concerned. And you can often see that patients appreciate the medical doctor who gives them the personal attention and the time. They already feel better. So they're not as sick as you come out on an office where you were given the right attention, right? Which is, I agree with Dr. Liu, we need to go back. And culturally, there's so many places in the world. The US has some really good things, and China has tremendous value in these cultures, right? Many, many new things are coming. So how do we look and how do we integrate all this? Well, that's really a personal question, but also it becomes really quickly a global question, recognizing we have the skills, we have the tools, we have the personal skills and the tools, we have the medical skills and the tools. There's a pocket everywhere, and we just need to bring them together and learn from each other instead of, oh, mine works and yours doesn't. You know, what works, what really works. And when you want to look at somebody, like look at people who are healthy, learn from them, right? If you want to have good finances, we look at people who are wealthy. Well, if you want to look from health, it's either from somebody who's walked their walk and recovered from something difficult like Karen had, or somebody who's treating many, many patients and is very successful, or somebody who's really healthy. What have they done that works?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, it's been a fascinating, fascinating few, I guess half an hour, 40 minutes we went over because we could talk about this all day. I think this has been one of the most interesting panels of this conference.